What's up everyone, I'm Dan and thanks to Dolores Entertainment for the review code for Beholgar 2 on the Nintendo Switch systems. Beholgar 2 is the kind of game that immediately grabs your attention if you grew up loving fantasy heroes like He-Man and Conan the Barbarian. From its muscle-bound protagonist wearing little more than a loincloth to its brutal combat and old-school presentation, this is a game that proudly wears its influences on its sleeve. Even though I never played the original Beholgar, I found it easy to jump into this sequel and enjoy what it has to offer. The story is simple but effective. An ancient evil has awakened, threatening the peace of the world. The only weapon capable of stopping it was forged by a legendary blacksmith who has been dead for centuries. That leaves Beholgar with only one option: descend into the depths of hell and retrieve a weapon forged in demonic flames. It's a classic fantasy setup, but it works well for the game's retro-inspired adventure. Visually, Beholgar 2 is one of those games that instantly feels nostalgic. The pixel art is fantastic throughout, with detailed environments, impressive enemy designs, and beautifully drawn static story scenes that feel like something straight out of the 16-bit era. There are also several visual options available. Players can activate a retro effects mode that gives the game an even more authentic old school appearance, while bloom effects can be turned on or off depending on personal preference. It's always nice to see developers include these customization options, especially in a game that clearly celebrates retro gaming. It's a small touch, but a welcomed one. Despite it being a kind of Metroidvania, Beholgar 2 is actually a fairly linear experience. There are some light exploration elements and optional paths to discover, but the game focuses on straightforward progression through its various stages rather than backtracking to areas that you may have visited previously. One feature I appreciated was the checkpoint teleportation system. Once you've discovered checkpoints, you can use them to fast travel around the map. This helps reduce unnecessary backtracking and keeps the pace moving. Unfortunately, the implementation can feel a little awkward as you can only fast travel while standing at specific teleport locations. Combat is undoubtedly the heart of the experience. Beholgar can wield 5 different weapons, each offering a distinct playstyle. You'll also gain access to ranged attacks and magical abilities, giving you several options for dealing with enemies. As you defeat monsters and collect treasure, you'll earn gold that can be spent upgrading your weapons. Additional upgrade materials hidden throughout the world allow you to further improve your weapons and add magical effects. This progression system gives exploration a rewarding purpose and provides a satisfying sense of character growth. Watching your favourite weapon become more powerful over time is genuinely enjoyable. When combat clicks, it can be quite fun. Slicing through hordes of enemies, battling giant monsters, and taking on the game's many bosses creates some memorable moments. The boss encounters are especially enjoyable, often serving as the highlights of each area. However, this is also where many of the game's problems begin to show. Movement and combat can feel surprisingly clunky at times. Double jumps don't always register properly, wall clinging mechanics can be inconsistent, and platforming sections occasionally feel frustrating due to floaty animations. There's also a parry mechanic, but I didn't find it very useful and instead just used dodges to avoid enemy attacks. The controls are serviceable, but they never feel as precise as they should. Early deaths often come less from difficulty and more from learning to work around the game's quirks. Performance is another area that needs improvement. While the visuals themselves look fantastic, the game struggles to maintain smooth performance. Frame pacing issues, stutters, and occasionally delays can interrupt the action. It's not unplayable by any means, but it's noticeable enough. What makes Beholgar 2 so interesting is that despite all of these flaws, I still enjoyed my time with it. There's an undeniable charm here. The retro visuals are gorgeous, the soundtrack is well done, the combat is satisfying when everything works correctly, and the fantasy atmosphere is wonderfully nostalgic. It's a game that feels rough around the edges, yet its charm consistently shines through. If you're someone who can put up with those rough edges in exchange for a fun, old school action adventure, there's a lot to like here. Beholgar 2 isn't a perfect Metroidvania, nor is it the most polished action platformer available today. But beneath the clunky controls and performance hiccups lies a genuinely entertaining fantasy adventure packed with personality. For fans of classic Barbarian heroes, retro gaming aesthetics, and straightforward action, this is a journey worth considering, even if it's not a perfect one. Beholgar 2 is out now on the Nintendo eShop, priced at $16.20 in the UK and $17.99 in the US. Have you played this one yet? And what do you think about it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks to you as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and until next time.